We are in the G70. We've been in the G70 before.
We have.
We've recommended it a lot.
Yes, we have.
But the reason this car is notable is because of the new powertrain.
Yes.
The Stinger is dead. Long live the Stinger.
The Stinger was awesome. The Stinger was this chassis lengthened, and pretty much you wanted that in all-wheel drive. That's how that happened. It had a usable back seat. This G70 has a small back seat. The Stinger has been killed for lack of sales, which is a real loss for the car industry.
It's a real bummer.
This car remains.
This has the new 2.5-liter engine, the turbocharged engine, that makes 300 horsepower, 311 pound-feet of torque. Which means this is no longer the base. I mean, it is the base.
I
There's
agree.
still that 365 horsepower V6 twin turbo above this.
Yes.
But the way this car moves suddenly makes this the compelling choice. At $49,000, suddenly this is the Genesis G70 to buy.
It's interesting to me because the engine really is the news for 2024. Of course, this is an all-wheel drive version. We haven't driven the all-wheel drive before in the G70, which is interesting, and there's repercussions as a result of it being all-wheel drive. But the interesting thing about this is everyone in the industry makes a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo.
It's the standard.
And they
standard
all
displacement.
get roughly mid 200 horsepower, roughly mid to high 200 torque. That is, I mean, if you are a car maker right now, you make that engine. I make a 2-liter turbo. This is what I do, okay? So a 2.5 is uncommon. And what's interesting is that little bit of bump in displacement, then turbocharge, makes this feel like a significantly more powerful engine. That 300 horsepower, 311 pound-feet of torque, yes, it's a slight bump of like 50 horsepower and torque from the 2-liter, but I submit it actually feels like more. It feels like the engine this car should have, instead of being, to your point, just, well, I got the base model.
Yeah.
Great cars, great roads, and all the reasons we love to drive. Road trips, comparisons, test drives, and podcasts. This is Everyday Driver.
I am not claiming that this is a mid-engine, a front mid-engine sports sedan.
That's good because it's not.
It's not. But if you open the hood, look at this engine, look at the placement. It's actually shoved a little bit further back than you would think. And that translates to balance. Now, we're reading somewhere in between 3,800 to 3,900 pounds for the all-wheel drive. It's not light.
Yeah, I want to still stand on the fact that 3,800 plus pounds is too heavy for a sports sedan.
It is.
But when the new M5 weighs more than most SUVs at like 5,500 pounds or something, 3,800 pounds in the current cars being sold is decent.
Yeah.
It's decent.
But look, it's got all-wheel drive, a lot of peace of mind, but the car does pull you through.
It does.
I've noticed that you have to be very careful with the throttle at corner exit or just through a corner itself, because if you jump off the gas, it seems like the all-wheel drive system instantly wants to rotate the car, so it's going to change your line through the corner. It's good if you have steady, consistent, smooth inputs. Every car is good like that. But this one seems to be paying a lot of attention to the driver, which is a very good thing. It's heavy in the front. It feels heavy, but for sports sedans, this is way up there. And you think $49,000, I instantly liked this car. I liked how it drove. I liked how it rode. I like everything here. I like the styling, and I'm so impressed with the amount of power this makes. It just comes to life. It's the power that this car needed. This is the buy. This really is. Do not feel badly about getting the base model. Actually, shop for this one. We like all the G70s. If you're looking for a Genesis product or a G70, go to autotempest.com/everyday, because then they'll know we sent you. You can look at all the dealer inventory, and you can look at all the used G70s, but more importantly, you can look for this one too.
Yes, that's true. There are all of them. In fact, all over the nation from all of the places where stuff is posted. Autotempest.com/everyday, all the cars in one search. I am surprised that we are in a world where this car is 50 grand. That's hard to swallow initially. Now, it starts at 43,000. This one, of course, is the press car version, which means it's loaded out. But you start looking at any of its competitors, that is in the middle to on the low end of anything you would cross-shop this with. So while I hate that it costs that much, it is a very competitive price point for this world. And when you get in here, it's just nice in here.
It is just nice. Now, the reason this feels so tight and crisp in the front end is because of those strut tower braces. Look at these things. That is unconventional, even for anything that isn't the top-end model. You would think that they wouldn't pay that much attention, but it really feels almost BMW-like in its stiffness in the front end. You feel the steering first, and then you feel the all-wheel drive, and then you add power. It's almost steps to go through a corner in this car, and it's compelling. It is a sports sedan, but it's also a luxury car.
Yeah. In the early 2000s, Kia, Genesis, Hyundai, that conglomerate of Korean car makers, essentially sniped all of the German masters from BMW and Audi, and they changed their styling and they changed their dynamics. And this is the reality. We are still seeing the benefits of that strategy.
Yes.
Where when BMW cars are getting, I hate to say it, less attractive, heavier, and less engaging and dynamic to work with, these Korean brands are taking that place. They're like sliding into that world and saying, oh, that stuff you used to like from early 2000s BMW, we're doing that now. That is a coup.
Absolutely. If you haven't figured out by now that Genesis is not a dirty word, when you're shopping for a sport SUV or a sport sedan, this is the go-to. The styling has not changed much on the G70 for this model year, but that's okay because the big news is the powertrain. They have also added Brembo brakes. This is a compelling package. But look at the styling. I've always felt like this is kind of the direction Mercedes should have gone, and they are looking clearly at Mercedes, designing with surface first and then intersecting it with a nice crisp feature line somewhere. Some crease, some feature line, but mostly it's painted on graphics. You see that giant grille and that they're doing it right. This symbol, this shield grille works really well. And then let's get in, and I feel like Genesis is now what Audi was in the early 2000s. The interiors of Genesis are what you aspire to having. Knurled everything, the switchgear, the feel of things. It's now the digital controls, the touchscreen now for this model year.
HVAC,
But the biggest thing is the screen indicates to buyers that the car is not controlled by a screen. The shapes are similar to everything else in the interior. To me, this is very Audi-like. But look, this screen could be bigger, but it tells you that we don't need to go any bigger than this. And it's part of the car. It does have features in there, but look, here's the main things that you need to use. The HVAC controls.
It's 3 stacked rectangles.
It's a distinct hierarchy, which I really like. And, of course, vents front and center, which is nice.
I'm telling you, I'm worried about the vents. The vents are good here. They did it right. They absolutely did it right.
8-speed transmission. I would like more indication that you can switch to manual, but all you have to do is pull a paddle, and then you're in manual mode. The park button, I feel like, takes some getting used to. It should be maybe right here on the side, but it's a toggle switch. And then down here is this drive mode switch. From Eco to Comfort to Sport, Sport Plus.
Sport Plus, ladies and gentlemen,
Customize your own settings. It makes it easy to find right here. There's a nice hierarchy throughout the cabin here. And even the bezel around the cup holders.
You're right.
Details. Everything is paid attention to. And so it makes you feel like that Mazda thing, you're getting a lot of money's worth.
Yes, you're right. The only place this interior really falls down is that this is an incredibly nice car with cramped back seats.
That's the downside.
And that is the downside. And we've talked also about, for example, the Acura TLX, another sedan that we actually really, really like. Comes in all-wheel drive, definitely a price competitor to this, a luxury competitor to this. It has the same problem. It might be a little bit worse, but only fractionally. This is a small back seat. And so this definitely is one of those things where how big are you as a person? How big is your family? How big are the people that need to get in the back seat? How often will they be used? If you're going to put full-size adults in the back, the people in the front are going to have to slide forward a little bit just to kind of balance everybody out. It's just one of the things to know. Depending on how you use the car, it may never, ever be an issue, but that is the one downside to this. Now, the upside is the dynamics are good because the car is smaller. The Stinger, again, RIP, the Stinger actually had really good back seats, but was a bigger car. So this has the dynamics you want and a little bit less usability.
I mean, here we've got the G70, but if you want the bigger Genesis, there's the G80, which is the back seat space that you're looking for. But this, to your point, is the more compact, focused sports sedan that seems to almost be one of one in the marketplace for the price. You have to go spend a lot of money to get the sports sedan out of the German and European competitors, But here, the price, the engine, this is so compelling to me. And when you look at the electroluminescent display, it has character.
It does. Yeah.
Why does the TAC need to start left and go right? We're all used to that. It's the opposite here.
I did the Aston Martin thing.
Yes.
Yeah, they embrace the fact that the gauges are going to be opposite each other. The Aston Martin deal, yeah.
And it's legible, it's easy to read, but it's not too cluttered. It's interesting, and I just think it's different. It's for the sake of being different, it makes you pay attention, and it's just kind of compelling.
And you have actual gauge clocks there. It's not just a digital screen, which in its own way feels kind of luxurious and inviting.
In the interior, I think every car maker should put these buttons right here on the side of the passenger seat for the rear seat passengers to be able to control it. This was the solve for the lack of rear seat space.
You're right.
Every car should have this so you don't have to play the game. How's it now? Too far back? Too much? And then there's grunting and groaning from the backseat passenger like, I guess, and then they just finally decide they can live with it.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing.
The controls.
My wife got in behind me. She's 5'6", I'm 6'3". She got in behind me. I had her set the seat, and then I climbed in. So that was actually how we solved it. She just sat in the back and played with the buttons and got the seat to a place where she was okay. Then I climbed in. We had the negotiation, but that's marriage, right? And then we ended up in a good place.
It's like a little social experiment. You didn't know that buttons could do that.
Absolutely, no question.
All right, you've got to drive this.
Yep, I'm ready. I like that you brought up the toggle. I think we are all getting used to it. I also think, though, that this one, because it only does rear neutral drive, I think this is the one that feels the most confidence-inspiring when you use it. You kind of go, oh, I understood what it did. I take your point. You have to look down and go, oh, to make it park, I have to hit a button for park. You're going to have to.
Sure.
It's not. I actually don't even think it's something you're going to really get used to doing without looking. I think you're going to consistently look when you have this car.
Maybe
is
that's
this a
the
downside?
point.
No, it probably is the point. Yeah, let's pay attention.
Safety. I wish there were a little bit more adjustability in these seats. The lower thigh support. It needs
I agree with that.
Tilt up just a little bit more.
Probably be a little longer too would be nice. Okay, I am actually not flooring it. This is mid-throttle, and I am instantly struck by the fact that feels, surprisingly fast. This is an engine that keeps surprising me when I drive this car, because I don't expect that it will have the power that it delivers, and that's actually really nice, especially when you thought, well, I just bought the 4-cylinder turbo, whatever. I think any buyer of this car is going to be pleasantly pleased with the amount of power that they got. I wish every car maker made something in this segment, and they just don't. And even though this is an all-wheel drive version, this is rear-wheel drive architecture, which generally, from a driver's perspective, is more satisfying. Now, people integrate their all-wheel drive differently. This one's a little bit odd. I love the dynamics of the rear-wheel drive G70. This one, sometimes, when you put your foot in it mid-corner, the all-wheel drive, you mentioned it a little bit earlier, the all-wheel drive engages in a way that changes how you pointed the car. And so you have to kind of be ready to adjust for the all-wheel drive system just influencing what just happened. That's not the best integration I've felt. You want that integration to be so consistent it just fades into the background and you don't know how the wheels are driven. This I still prefer in rear-wheel drive. If you want all-wheel drive, this is a good driving, dynamically superb sedan that every now and then just rears its little head where it's, oh, that's right, the fronts are doing something, aren't they?
Sure.
That changed the world. You have to, it's the tiniest bit of adjustment. I want to call it out, but I want to acknowledge, I don't want to overstate it, because it's not like it's distracting, but it's just one of those things where you learn to drive this car because of how the all-wheel drive influences the front.
Yeah, that turn-in is pretty sharp because the all-wheel drive is a little bit too happy. It turns in and just yanks the front end through, so maybe you've turned a little bit too much to start with, but you figure it out. Yeah. And when you start to hammer, this car is rewarding to drive.
It is. It is.
I've noticed that you have discovered the home position for the speed of this car is 83 miles an hour. It's
barely
not
above
84.
80. It's barely above 80.
81 is too little.
You're right. It's very funny.
83 is where this car likes to hang out.
Every car just settles.
You just settle into it. Like
funny?
83. Again. There it is. It's faster than most cars. I mean, it just has a faster pace, and it's fine. It's comfortable doing that.
Yeah. Well, this is a car, because it is confidence inspiring. Like we're going down a section of I-80 here that actually has quite a few corners, especially for a major interstate. But here I am driving this sedan, and it's just easy. Very consistent movements, and you're right, this does have a pretty sharp steering ratio.
It's just that
so it
everything
dives
wants to
in
turn.
quickly. It dives in very quickly, but the body control is excellent, and you can just hammer your way through these corners. It's really confidence inspiring, and it's rewarding. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
A lot of times when you get these all-wheel drive sedans, they are fine to drive. There's nothing wrong with them, but there's nothing compelling about it. This has a little bit of compelling edge to it that makes you want to drive it quickly.
Keep saying that sedans are dying and sports sedans are dying too, but if the car industry wants to keep them around, they need to build cars like this. It's at a great price point. It's got a lot of good power. It's not the most, but for most driving that you do, this is faster than most cars. It's just quick. And this is a good car to drive. It's interesting, it's compelling at all times, everywhere you go. At a good price point. Again, the price point is key.
Well, and it also
You can add power.
Yes.
Price goes up.
But there is no reason to add power here. This has every bit of power the average person is ever going to need. I know we're all conditioned to horsepower numbers are supposed to be like have a 5 on the front or above, okay? We're all conditioned to that. But the reality is that 300 horsepower, 311 pound-feet of torque is excellent. It's very good in a car this size, and it's so readily available that you never think, well, this really feels underpowered. It's excellent and very good at that, so I'm pleased by all of those realities. So this does a great job of being an alt, and I take your point. We have to have good sedans, and that brings sedans back. I wish there were more people doing this right here, but they're not. The G70 is a standout. It really is. I
like it. Plus, it falls right in my 250 horsepower to 600 horsepower sweet spot. It's
your
a good
sweet swath.
It's a good
the
swath.
The sweet swath of horsepower, a la Paul Schmucker. It's very good.
It's at the lower end, but it's still in the range, and it's got
just fine,
plenty of power. It's quick.
Yep. I didn't think I'd ever be this happy with a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder turbo. That extra 0.5, that extra half liter has made all the difference.
Exactly.
Who knew?
All right, Genesis, if you're going to keep doing some weird engines, some unique characteristics, why not bring the 5-cylinder back? Volvo did it, Audi did it.
Yeah.
Let's go unique.
Why not?
Let's really set yourself apart in the car industry. Let's go 5-cylinder. Unique sound, interesting power.
Okay.
Compete with the RS3. Just saying.
Genesis competing with the RS3 is interesting.
That would be kind of cool.
Okay. All right. I see it. All right. We're product planning again. We do that now and then.
We do that a lot.